Okay. We'll get rolling for the sake of time here. So thanks for coming. Welcome to the post-lunch pasta shakeout. I'm going to walk you through our ME implementation at Moen. My name is Mike Livermore. I'm a director in the IT department, and my sole purpose in life is to cover the operations part of our business. So my whole IT squad, we support manufacturing, sourcing, quality, distribution, all that kind of stuff. We don't do finance, we don't do marketing, we get the parts and we make it. That's our job. So one of the business people had to cut out early, so I'm going to carry this forward. So I'm going to dive in here. I'm going to give you a little bit of business context, a little bit of technical overview. I'm going to show you what sort of we've learned and where the value proposition has been. And all along, I'd tell you if you have questions, feel free just to shout them out. We've got 45 minutes, and I don't think my yammering up here will take quite that long. So let me give you a little bit of Moen business context first. I know some people kind of overdo this, but this is relevant to what are you doing with ME, so I'm going to spend 60 seconds here. First of all, just general size. We're a consumer products company. We're about $1 billion in size, actually 1.2, and we've been a long-time SAP customer. We've been in this space for over 15 years, or about 15 years, and generally speaking, we make stuff. So we are a discrete manufacturer. We've got a supply chain globally. We bring parts into the assembly floor. We make finished goods, and we put them in the DC. We make very cool and attractive products, of course. It's my commercial. But we're a physical company where you make products. And then in a general chronology sense, in 1937, Al Moen invented the single-handle faucet. And in 2011, we started to do ME, and then some other stuff in between there. That was supposed to be funny. Never mind. After lunch, come on. Okay, I put this up here just from SAP citizenship. This isn't ME related, but Moen likes to extract wisdom from people who are doing things. Oh, you're doing that, we'd like to talk to you. This is our footprint. So if you stare at that for 10 seconds and go, oh, you're an APO customer. Oh, you're into CRM. We're happy to share. We're happy to dispense any wisdom we have. So that's just here's what we're doing if anybody has any interest in where we've gone. Mobility and BI and a few other things. So I'm going to walk you through generally how did we shape this, what was our definition of good quality, and this is sort of around proper product quality coming out of the manufacturing plants, and largely the solution, the way it was implemented, is in our final assembly facility. Moen has a relatively simple supply chain, although Paul the other day said it was complex. So we bring a lot of parts from overseas, but we have a couple manufacturing plants in the US and a number of DCs. But I know some of your companies have like 45 plants and 75 DCs. We don't have that problem. So this solution is in our assembly facility where we put the product together and give it to the distribution center. So this is our final assembly, the solution and lessons, et cetera. So the opportunity itself starts with the product, right? This is just a picture of one of our more simple single-handle lav faucets. And it's all lovely and all that. But in the end, it turns out to be parts, right? I mean, this is the challenge in a manufacturing site. It's a bunch of parts. And then when you get to the plant floor, it becomes a bunch of part numbers that all have to be ordered, stocked, moved, move it, touch it, count it, right thing at the right place at the right time. Otherwise, I've got a problem. And I can tell you in this space, this is one of the business drivers that got us into ME. So I don't know what your business is like, but in our case, we had a challenge with, as good as we thought we were, we had a challenge with missing and wrong parts. Because invariably, there's about 40 or 50 parts in a faucet box or a faucet assembly. And whether it's a bicycle or a cabinet or a faucet, you get that box home and open it up and there's one missing, right? That's not a good thing. Now you're cheesed off, your significant other's upset. When are you going to put the faucet in? Now you got to go back to the store. You go back to Home Depot. So that's your time and energy. You go back to Home Depot. I want to return this. Now that's your time, their cost. They have to put that away. They have to handle it. They need to ship it back to us. They're not happy with the return process. That's one part in one box for one consumer. And if we do this over and over, that's a real problem. So generally, our challenge was, how do I eliminate, literally eliminate, missing and wrong parts in the manufacturing process or the assembly process? So our initiative, our lingo, was zero defect line. Zero, not kind of good defect line, zero. So just an order of magnitude, and there's a couple, the gentleman who prepared this went a little overboard, but the two key data points, I think, are on average, we're bringing over 1 million parts a day to the floor. So component parts being pulled from the warehouse, component parts coming in the door to the assembly cells. There's over 1 million parts every single day coming there. I'm going to skip some of this because I think it's a little too much detail. Production orders, about 3,000 bringing on the floor. There's about 150 places we stock things on the floor. We We have about 55 discrete assembly cells on the floor, 500 changeovers a day. And on average, actually we're running north of this right now, about 40,000 faucets go out the door. So any given day in the assembly plant, over 1 million parts come to the floor and over 40,000 faucets go out of the building. What's the chance you could miss a part any given day and then you're the cheesed-off consumer at home? It's not zero, right? So we needed some help to do that. And the other dynamic here is not only that simple physical handling of the parts is volume generally is up. As the economy slowed in 07 and 08 and 09 and construction dropped, we felt that, but it was going up and it's sure as heck going up now. More products, more changeovers, more unique components. So I'm sure this is relative to your business too. It's up, 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 faster, faster, more. So how do we handle that? And our goal, I think, generally is what we were striving for, that ME was really well positioned for, was invincibility. We wanted to be perfect. We don't want to be kind of good. We want to stomp the competition off the planet. So how do you do that? The most basic level to us is the product has to all be there, right? When you open that box, it better dang well all be in there. And the next thing is, it better be assembled as it's designed. So assuming we have proper design and proper engineering, it needs to be put together in the right fashion with the right parts in the right way. And some things go together in the plant, screw them together, and others are in bags and boxes for you at home. But if we're not doing these two things right, you're not happy, the product doesn't work, we lose revenue, we're out of business, and I'm living under a bridge. So going forward, there's other things about, does it work as advertised, and some other marketing sort of things, but the red things are what we were shooting at. The product has to work, it has to have all the parts, and it needs to be that every single day of the year. One of the things we found where we were, and I took the numbers off of this for obvious reasons, just in terms of scale, we were nowhere near Six Sigma quality. Our PPMs, and these are sort of setup related and assembly related defects, things that would actually happen in the cell. They weren't where we needed them to be. So in a factual sense, the business driver, we don't want to just try ME because it's cool, like we find a real valid business solution. That is not where we want to be as a business. It needs to go down, and it needs to go down in a very discontinuous jump. Logarithmically drop it. And if we really peel that open a little bit, again, in our case, when we look at the setup problems we were having at the time, they were the red things, what it says setup errors on the left, which is missing parts, wrong parts, I put the wrong label on the box, I didn't set up the testers and some of the other machinery on the line. Now there's some other things that ME can't stop right out of the gate, which is supplier quality problems. I got a bad part from the supplier. When I check it using ME in the cell, I still might have that. You can read the other things on the right. But there was enough opportunity here to drive out the red and make it go to zero that we decided to go after ME. Now the other reality we believed in our manufacturing process was the equipment on the line itself, just the equipment itself doesn't get you where you need to go. So we have scanners and printers and weigh scalers and labelers, but there's still this human pair of hands that had to take ERP instruction and said, this is what you're making today, here's how you need to set up the labeler. Now I'm making this SKU today, here's what I had to do to the label scale. So in addition to all the component parts being there or not being there, there were certain sort of physical setups and programming that had to happen down the line as the product was made. And anytime anytime you get humans involved, you got some subjectivity and some error there. So having that capability alone was just plain not enough. So in our case, we were generally shooting for two things. One was reducing in-market quality issues. So that's our lingo for there's a problem outside our walls. We've released something out of our business and out of our building that causes a problem in the field. And generally, it's either that, with a smile, the cheesed-off consumer that opens it and I don't have the right stuff, or it doesn't work when you install it and it floods your kitchen, and generally that doesn't make you too happy either. And then also plant productivity, the actual finances and the cell productivity and manufacturing productivity in the plant. How do we cut some time and improve that productivity process while getting the quality? Now, part of the challenge of anything of justifying, because we were not an ME customer at all before this sort of initiative came around, is we had to justify it. It cost money to license, we had to buy some hardware, we had to consume some of the IT staff. And I'm sure you all get into this, but the way we were looking at it is, where do you draw the line on the business case, right? There are things that are quantitative and I can count them. Productivity on the line, I can go from X minutes of setup to Y minutes of setup. Then I've got cost of quality, that I've not only the PPM in the cell and inspections and quality hold and rework. We want to get rid of that. But there's also sort of now subsequent quality issues like in our call center. So the more missing and wrong I send out the door, the more calls I get in the call center. Hey, you knuckleheads, you forgot to send me a part. So if I fix it in the cell, conceptually that should drop too. But then you get out into, well, the value of visual KPIs and visual where do I stand in the quality, how do you quantify that? Sometimes you can. Creating a mobile footprint, future capability of ME. So we decided to draw a line basically at the quantitative level of the case. So there's all kinds of fuzzy and esoteric things we could do later. It's good soft stuff. But in general, chief finance officers tend to want ROI based on payback, so we focused on what we could count and what we could quantify in the plant. And then generally, just what we were shooting at here in terms of what we committed to is a 50% year-over-year assembly rate drop and a time to changeover cut in half. So we're really shooting at quality in the cell, the productivity of the setup, and driving those down significantly, and where those would manifest themselves are on the right. So let's talk about what we did. So that was the driver to get to we think we want ME, and we talked to SAP about what's the right solution, because invariably there are many technical ways to solve things. They said ME is the way to go, and we made the case and took off. So in our case, what we chose to do, so this is the solution set now. How do you get zero defect quality, zero missing and wrong, and reduce setup time? We chose to do two things, really. One was part and bill validation in the cell. So now I want to put bill of material intelligence into the manufacturing cell, give it to the associate, and be damn sure I've got every single part and I don't have extra parts. It's exactly what the bill calls for in the cell with the worker. And also driving some of the automated setup into the machinery. So where possible, if I know I'm making SKU XYZ today, how do I give that label instruction to the label printer, and that tester setup to the tester? And no single person has to put their hands on that. So this is the scope of what we're going to talk about. This is how we were going after what we wanted. Any questions? No, this is an aerial view of our assembly plant. The only thing I want to show you here is generally parts get stored in the back in the warehouse, or dropped right to the floor, or I pull them out, pick them and bring them to the floor, and then I ship out the door. But in our case, just to be clear, because I think you could do this in a variety of ways, in our case, ME is in the manufacturing cell itself. So we said we had roughly 55 assembly cells. ME is inside that cell. That's where we chose to put it, and that's where it manifests itself and people interact with it. So looking at the solution, I forget the company's name. I apologize. The medical company that did a similar one, they had a very similar thing. To me, this is, the play out of the technology now is what does the solution set look like? There's at least 4 layers involved here. ECC is the master. We've been on ECC for over 10 years. That's our core business system. That's generally where all the truth emanates from, and it's certainly where the master data sits. But now we're down into the ME-MII layer. MII is the technical connection, right? It's the way I transmit and pass data back and forth between ECC, the master, and ME, the shop floor system. So that's at least 2 layers of technology. PICO is the short version for plant connectivity. That's another layer of technology that allows the SAP layer to talk to the PLC on the machine. So in the places where I'm driving instruction into machinery, I had to make that connection and do that kind of talking. And then also at the PLC layer itself, in the machinery and in the tester and in the label, et cetera, there's an RS links layer of software too. So as we're shooting for this business outcome, now what does it really turn into, and how do you do that? There's at least these layers of capability involved in making the information flow down and up appropriately. The other thing I'd tell you too, just for general awareness, if you're thinking about getting into the ME space is, and I'm not going to talk dollars in any way, but SAP basically licenses ME based on resources. So the number of devices and the number of ways you're going to hook into your plant. So the numbers themselves aren't necessarily important, but we had to take stock of how many things are we going to talk to? How many things are we going to interact with? If that footprint is like this, the cost is X. If that footprint is like this, the cost is going to be Y. So one of the learnings we had is, it's not just a software licensing thing, it's more like a capability footprint. The more you use it, the dollar value goes up, and that kind of seems to make sense. One of the other decisions we had to make, and this is where we got ourselves a little bit tangled up when we first started, is what was the first version it's my friend Carol here. What was the first version we started with? 5? 5.2. It wanted to just natively generate and manage itself at an individual discrete serial level. Every single faucet, in our case, every single faucet that went down the line had interactions and data and setups, and we didn't want to do that. We want to do it at sort of the batch or the run level. So we are discrete manufacturer, we use run schedules. So I'm going to make 600 of these over the next so many hours, and I'm going to make 400 of these. So we said, look, we want to do the setup at the big level, 600, then 400, then 700. I don't need faucet by faucet by faucet. So we had some customization built. Eventually we upgraded to a newer version, 6.0, that tended to do this a little bit better. But this is very much a business decision. This isn't a technical decision. Do you want to collect and manage and administer at a granular level, or do you want to do it at a much more macro batch level? That depends on your business and your drivers. We said granular is unnecessary, excessive, and costly. Let's stay up, and we had to sort of pull SAP back up that way. So this is sort of how it works. This is a visual of, kind of cheesy visual, but so imagine an assembly line. It's a straight line, it's not a U, it goes down. So I start with some basic things, and I go to step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What happens? So at the front of the line, right or wrong, today we're still using a paper traveler that goes down the line. And that contains basically run schedule information and SKU information. What am I about to start now? I'm going to make 600 of them over the next couple hours. Here it comes. So as the paper goes down the line, the operator in the cell now has a very simple UI to deal with on their handheld RF gun that says, look, at operation wherever I am, 2, operation 2, I need to have these parts in front of me because those are the 7 parts I'm going to use in this step. I start with these so many parts, then I need these parts, then I need these parts, and step by step down the line, I need to make sure the right parts are there. Not too few, not too many, the exact right ones. So what we're doing through ME is validating the bill of material against what's sticking in my face physically right here. So I scan, and I'm going to get 2 results, right? I'm scanning the part box, cha-ching, scan the part box, cha-ching, scan the part box. And 1 of 2 things will happen. This is a little hard to read. One says, this part number is not a BOM component. Please remove it from the line. So there's instant notification to the cell operator, you've got the wrong part. And it's kind of like an and-on cord thing. Don't work around it. Stop. Get that out of here. That does not belong here. Or I've gone through my validation, and in the end, I get a blank screen. Yay, I win, right? I've checked off on everything. I should have these 7 parts. The list is now blank, so the operator has a very simple interface that says, do I have the right thing or not? I don't have to remember. I don't need human intervention. ME says, yes, 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 you've got it. And then, operation by operation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next, after validating the parts, there's a setup operation button that comes up where necessary of, at operation 3, I want to set up the tester. At operation 7, I want to drive the label printer. So there's just simply click the button, and it says, great, you set it up. And in the end, operation is done, right? So I validated the bill of material. I've ensured I've got exactly the right part through a very simple interface. I've driven the instruction into the machinery where necessary. Never touched anything. This ME did that. And what the operator sees is a very simplistic interface. There's not T-codes to interact with. There aren't 6 layers of technology. It's kind of scan, scan, scan. When I get a blank screen, I win. And at the end, it says, look, you did the setup properly. And that's what the operator sees. Okay, so far? So that's kind of how the solution is played out in the scope of that. What we've seen, how did you do this? Whoops, a little squishy font there. We tend to think about business case and trying new things like ME in this manner. Discovery, incubation, and acceleration. It's a pretty common model, right? We want to discover what's the right capability, try it, prove it, scale it up, or maybe not, depending on how it goes. And if it's working, let's go. So our pattern, just as a point of reference, was we started with a pilot. And the pilot you could almost call a proof of concept. So this isn't like, we know we're taking this through the plant, absolutely, positively, no question. It was more like, we need to make sure this works. The technology works, the business value is inherent, the operators can deal with it on the floor, and then, once I get to like our golden cell, like that really, really works, now let's go. And we're just going to go through a pattern of our cells of kitchens and showers and all the way we make stuff. So proof of concept first, stabilize and kind of, production harden that, and let's go. So that's the process we were using. I won't go through all this. This is like everybody goes through the project process. The only thing I can tell you that I accentuated here as we did that, the couple things we checked off on were the benefits and the payback. Could we sort of see, in a quantitative sense, could we see we were getting the value? Does it feel like we were not having missing and wrong parts? The platform viability. Do we believe in SAP ME? Because frankly, we never used it before. I don't know anything about it. There's some horror stories of, God, that's really hard, or it didn't meet our needs, or I had to hire a whole staff of IT people. So we satisfied ourselves. It's production ready. There's a lot of people doing it. It's got a good future. And then the solution scalability is, can I scale it through the entire plant? We started in one little cell. It works great, but can I take it to 55 manufacturing cells and make it work like this every day all the time, as well as the other plant, as well as the other plant? And we satisfied ourselves. Our case was yes. So looking at the outcomes, just a little bit of a data point here. This is the setup time reduction. I know the font's a little small, sorry. So we found that factually over time, we were taking less time to verify materials. Before, it was a human being having to stand there with a clipboard and go, now it's like scan, blank, scan, blank. So we've dropped it. It doesn't go to 0. I still have a physical process to do that setup, or do that verification, but it's much less. They're stocking parts on the line, right? So I still got to put parts in the cell, feed the cell. Here's what I'm making today. ME doesn't do anything with that. I still need somebody dragging parts from the warehouse, putting them in the cell, and staging them. ME doesn't drop a penny off of that. But other things like label setup and light curtain and some of the equipment, largely that goes to 0. It's one scan and it's done. Or before I had to touch a keyboard, program it, make sure I put the right things in, and then move to the next one and do it again. Now it's like zap, 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 and I'm finished. So there was some discernible and visible time savings in setup. And when you scale that across, the math is, I do that every day, 500 times a day, across all days of the week. Eventually the math and the money start to add up in terms of savings and time savings. And also, this is the other byproduct in the upper right, where we believe we also have savings, is I don't have so many containment exercises. Holy crap, we let something out of the cell that's wrong. Stop that pallet at the dock. Somebody has to do that, inspect that, take that apart. So the fallout of the problem also starts to go away, as well as the problem set itself in the cell. In terms of PPM, this is sort of the quality part of the puzzle. I think the most telling slide or graph is on the left. I know that, again, the font is small. Let's look at it this way. This is our setup-related quality problems in the cell before ME, and this is after. So I think there's some things in the remaining blue bar that aren't really ME related, like there's some additional process and other quality things, like why isn't it 0? But you can at least see the dramatic drop. It's not like it went down a little bit. It went down a step function, and we measured that. And then the cost savings, I know it's not quite that linear, but as we go from kitchens to showers all through the plant, the time and cost savings we're getting will add up cumulatively across the plant and across time. And we're starting to see both of these really, 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 and factually. So the go-forward business case. So far what we've done with ME, we've put it in I forget the number, like 12 or 15 kitchen manufacturing cells. So how we make kitchen faucets, there's about 15 cells. But then we have all the rest of the plant to go. But remember that licensing model. Remember that SAP ME licensing model. How many devices are you talking to? So as I go to different cells, I might have different machinery and different things to interface with. So we're having a little bit of a discussion about, look, is this either a flat-out ROI case? There's no subjectivity. Like, if you can't dollarize it and explain, if I give you these $2, I get $4 back? Or is it just simply the right thing to do? When you look back at that PPM data, why would I not want to drive that through my plant? And of course, the right answer is it's a little of both, right? Anything you invest in has to have some sort of payback. That's what our executives and our CFOs like. But at the same time, people who run the plant go, look, it's given me the right quality. We absolutely need to do this. So case-wise, I'm very positive we're going to go forward, and it's really a mixture of both. So what have we learned? How hard could this be, right? Well, one thing that's clear and obvious, at least on the IT side where I live, is there's a whole bunch of new technology that showed up. 10 minutes ago, this stuff wasn't in our building. Now it's here. So you need bodies and skills to support that. And a lot of it's under the covers, so if there's business people in the audience, they go, I don't have to deal with that. That's not my job. But if you work on the IT side of the fence, how do I do that, right? So there's the daily execution, the upkeep, version management. Oh, it's not alive today. We found there's at least these layers of technology that have to be dealt with. Pico, ME, the RS Links thing, some of the controls engineers do that, not IT actually, and some of the integration points. But there's a whole new space of technology in your plant that wasn't there 10 minutes ago. That's clearly one learning. So without going through this in detail, the plant staff and with IT's help looked at what do I need? How fast do I need to get there? Because if I'm piloting and scaling up, I don't need to be expert right out of the gate, but I better darn well have a plan for when I hit the full plant, IT's ready, the controls engineer's ready, the manufacturing associates are ready. So it's the scale-up plan of skills, roles, and readiness that we took a pretty hard dive at just to make sure we're ready, then how do we track to this? Oh, and in the lower right corner, in addition to that stuff that says Pico and ME, you're putting more just sort of inherent base level infrastructure in the cell. You might have more wires in the cell than you had before. You have more RF guns in the cell you had before. So we tend to call those like desktop or infrastructure people. But in addition to the application, I've got more technology in the cell than I had before too. So you got to account for that time-wise, resource-wise, et cetera. This was an interesting question. Is the juice worth the squeeze? So all this, stacks and interfaces and skill sets, to get 2 little blank screens. Is that worth it? And the answer is, of course it's worth it. So this is one of those where, on the surface, it doesn't look like much to the operator. But I think what you've heard, or I certainly heard in a lot of these other sessions, are the emphasis on simplicity and sustainability. Like the 12 T codes I got to migrate my way through, that does not work on the plant floor. So having 2 little screens, scan, 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 and I know when it goes blank, I did the right thing, that's the interface I'm after, even though it might take layers of technology to pull it off. So in our case, we believe the answer is yes. The other thing I thought I'd share with you, too, is how we were thinking about dollars. So these aren't numbered, but I think you get the concept of each line. So some of them are, where and when do I have licensing money? How and where do I wean myself off SAP help? Because invariably, this is sort of new, right? It's kind of complex out of the gate. We're not fully skilled and literate. We're going to need some help, whether it's SAP or any other third-party vendor. But I don't want to be, at least this is Moen's mindset, I don't want to be dependent on that. We are all about self-sufficiency, but out of the gate, I need to implement and show benefit, but directionally, I want to get away from, I'm dependent on every time I want to make a move, I need to open my checkbook. I don't want to do that. I want to own that in IT. So the different lines of hardware and contingency, we just kind of plotted over time as we move through the plant. How much money do I need and when? And clearly our emphasis is, at least on the services side, was I want to drive it to 0. And frankly, where we are right now, just as a little extra data point, this is a discussion we're having as we're ready to move out of kitchens through the rest of the plant. The business leadership, properly so, is asking IT, are you ready? Do you have the bodies and the skills? Because there's no way I'm going to pour another X amount of dollars into this space. I know there's goodness, but I'm not going to invest in it unless you're ready to support, because otherwise, that red line about services does not go like that. It goes up and it stays up, and I am not paying for help every time I need it. I need IT with me and skilled. And the answer is yes, of course, being good corporate citizens that we are. So we're getting in position for that. And then just looking forward, there's a number, I won't read all these, but there's a number of other places we see where we can apply ME capability, what the impact of it is, direct cost, indirect cost, quality, et cetera. So one little clarification, at least in our case, we're validating parts in the cell, right? Missing and wrong parts are a bad thing. But invariably, if I run a SKU long enough, I need to be replenished. I need more of those parts, please, more of those parts, please. So I've checked it at first, but the next time the stocker comes around and shoves parts in the back of the cell for me to pull out, how do I know they put the right parts in there? So we want to next look at the replan process. And can I even use RFID? As I pull it out of the warehouse and into the cell, do I even have to touch it? Can I interact with ME automatically? So these are just, it's working really well. We want to do more with it, I guess, in our case, is the point of this. And the future, the one thing we have not done that we're kind of interested in is MII as an application platform. So the solution, the way the way SAP licenses it, you get just enough MII to do the interfacing, not the intelligence part, but the interfacing. I got to talk to ECC and throw data back and forth. But as you've probably seen over the past day or so, MII can be used for a lot of things, dashboarding, alerts, sort of the visual, I actually see it. We haven't done any of that yet, but we're very interested in that, and we're likely to go after that too. So just bringing the topic to closure, a couple of takeaway points hopefully for you is it working really in the business? And I would tell you the answer is absolutely yes. And if nothing else, I'd show you that PPM chart where it was kind of like that, and then it was like that. And the cost savings are being quantified and tracked. It's really, really working. Are we getting the business benefits? Yes. Functional and technical. I sort of did those backwards, sorry. Do we believe in the platform? I think yes. And I think, frankly, me as an IT director, having been here for the past 2 days and hearing what other people are doing, what their success stories are, and how they believe in it, and what they want to do next, it just gives me more clarity and hope than ever, because before sometimes you feel like you're in a cave going, well, that wasn't quite as easy as I thought. You sure you want to do more of that? It hurts when I do that. But there's a lot of people doing it, and it doesn't have to be easy to get the benefit. And in the end, does it take more than a couple days? Yeah. And this is the reality part. So all the slides and all the customer stories invariably seem to sound like it really works. And it does. I mean, in our case, I would absolutely advocate for this. And SAP, I'll tell you, has been a great partner to work with. I'm really impressed how they've stepped in here with us. But in the end, this is an initiative. It takes time and money and resources and change. And it's not always easy. But in the end, if you feel it's going to give you the right benefit, and we're seeing the benefit, and we want to do more, then let's go. So again, I draw your attention back to the parts problem. In our case, in our business, in this space, that's what we were shooting at, and that's where we applied ME first. And then we have a lot of other desires for ME, and we have a lot of other desires for MII. But in the end, there's nothing like you being mad at home because you're missing one part in a box. And if we make 40-some thousand faucets a day, that's a lot of parts and a lot of boxes. So that's my story. I just wondered if you have any questions or comments. I kind of zipped through that. But in the end, it's working, and it's doing what we need it to do, and we fully believe in ME. Questions? Yes, sir.
Operator using ECC6 to do confirmation for waivers, stuff like that.
There are other, if I understand your question, let me try to restate that. Are they using ECC6? Everything else in the cell is ECC based. Whatever manifests itself in the cell, this validation and the equipment setup is ME driven, but largely everything else that goes on in the plant is driven out of ECC 6.0. Yes. And there's some BI displays and real-time things we put on the walls, but transactionally we still very much live in ECC. Any other questions? Yes, sir. How large an IT staff? You see the lady sitting next to you? That's the staff. No, I'm kidding. Interesting. You clearly work in IT, right? How do I get more headcount, right? Our IT department in total is about 70 people. So for a billion-dollar corporation, we're about 70 IT bodies. That's like VP to the frontline associates. Trying to think how else I would quantify this. Realistically, and this is one of the challenges, that's a very good leading question. When we did this, I wasn't joking, Carol, this is one of my associates, Carol Jones, was the team. So remember back to that pilot model. Let's try it. So let's not overinvest. I don't want to hire 18 people. I don't know if this is going to work or not. So we partnered Carol with SAP's help, with some of the process engineers, with the quality leader, and we hammered our way through that. And frankly, in a learning pilot, hack your way through the jungle kind of way, it wasn't always pretty, was it? You're out of therapy now. It's over, so everything's good. Okay. But now we're at that point. If you remember, that decision curve is IT ready. Now we clearly need more than one body. And she believes that too, I think, right now. Please, God. So strategically, we're going to ask for some more heads and some more money to support the space. So the way Moen does its strat planning and its headcount justification, we tend to do that once a year. So our story here on the IT side will be the plants want to invest and grow something, and we just can't paddle harder to keep up with. We need more bodies to support. They're advanced skills. I'm sure there's future capability in a multi-year vision kind of way. So the short answer is piloting and first step was really kind of Carol with some basis team help. But that will not be sustainable. We need more bodies and more technical skill to grow this through the plant and probably into the other plant too. Yep. Good question, though. Thank you. Anything else? Yes, sir. We just used SAP first. I know there's a lot of other viable partners in this space without rattling all their names off because I'd forget somebody, but we chose to use SAP directly at first. They were part of our, I think I say this right, they were part of our strategy formation process. Like, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Is ME the right answer? Here's how we recommend you do that. And by the way, if you need the help, and we went, yes, we need the help, we can give you resources to get there too. So we were solely SAP. Now, I don't know how many gentlemen standing in the back have SAP shirts on, but you know, SAP is a little bit costly in an ongoing consulting kind of way. So I think that's the services curve. Going down is maybe we transition as we scale and get more self-sufficient. Maybe we move from SAP help to a lower cost, bluntly, third-party helper, just to make sure we're still getting forward progress and we really know how to drive the car ourselves. And eventually what we want to do is drive the services line to zero where possible, and we'll do it. We have the bodies, we have the skill set, and we have the know-how going forward that we don't really need help. My guess is as we get into future capabilities of not just scaling this zero defect thing, we want to do something totally new with ME, we might need help again. You know, it's a totally new adventure. It's not just more of it. It's very, very different. But to answer your question, yeah, we just use SAP directly at first. Yes, sir. Sorry.
You did 6 or 7 stations in your manufacturing, right?
On the line, yes.
So each of those stations, and they scan what's coming in, and then they scan their 6 bins to make sure those parts are there, right?
Correct.
So each step of the way, it adds more parts to that. Where do you do the mapping of the parts to the cell?
That's in the routing? Or the bill? You might have to speak up.
In the bill of material, in the sort field, we define what operation that material goes to as we.
So that's up in ECC?
Yes, ECC as we when we execute and create our shop order in ECC, what comes down with it is our shop order along with our SKU and our quantity and what version of the bill of material that we need that comes on down behind it. And when it gets down to ME.
Those 6 parts for station 2 are.
Yes.
Yes,
and when it comes down to ME, it knows based on that field in ECC what operation it should be validated in.
Right or wrong, wherever possible, we try to use ECC as the master of all truth in the universe and drive it down to ancillary systems as opposed to replicate truths all over the place.
that's the translation of your bill of material to your manufacturing.
Correct. Yes. And ECC to ME specifically, right? Yes, sir.
Mike, thank you. Very insightful. One question about business benefits. You achieved the business benefits. Was there a value study done, a business case done before launching the project, and then?
I don't think we did, like in an SAP value engineering kind of way. I don't think we committed to that, did we? I don't think we did that. I know that service, and we've used it in various ways. I don't think we did that here, though. And frankly, this was, the only reason I say I don't think, because this was owned by a different director when it started. That gentleman left the company, I kind of moved in here. I don't think we did a value engineering thing. I think it was just more general Moen opportunity, Moen business case. We used SAP wisdom for, I have a problem, what's the right answer? And they gave us advice, but it wasn't like a value engineering kind of thing.
And how much, do you involve I'm assuming you have a Six Sigma team at Moen?
It's not so much like in a traditional sense, a Six Sigma team. The plant leadership and the quality department are kind of that brain power that speak that language, but it's not like a Six Sigma specifically that go after Six Sigma things. We understand the goal, but we don't organize ourselves that way. I'm not sure I'm answering, but that would be my answer. Does that help?
Yeah, so I was actually wondering if, number one, if there is a Six Sigma team, and
No.
you kind of involve them in formulating your business case or the.
No, again, we have some Six Sigma green belt type people We don't have an organizational construct like a team that focuses on those things. We apply lean manufacturing, we run Kaizens and value stream mapping, but they're kind of targeted with different groups and different skills. So there isn't a distinct group that does that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So you have to pay the licensing fee per device that you're accessing.
I knew I shouldn't have brought that up. Yes. No, I'm kidding.
Is it, if I'm gathering multiple pieces of information from a device, does it matter if I'm gathering one piece of information or 100 pieces of information? Is it the same fee?
I don't.
It's one.
It's one. I think you're talking to the device. The resource is what drives licensing. If I'm talking to 20 things, that's different than if I'm talking to 300 things. But if I'm getting 2 pieces of data or 84 pieces of data, I don't think it matters.
I have another question too on your
Whoops.
business justification for this.
Yeah.
You said some hard dollars, some soft dollars, but obviously the hard dollar is what is on our eye. And it looks like you increased your capacity as part of this project. Did you use that increased capacity as a means of turning that into dollars to help justify it?
I think, I'm giving you my opinion, frankly. I think that was kind of we assume we'll get that benefit, but it wasn't dollarized to the point of, well, how many more units per day am I going to create? I don't think we went that far. It's a very insightful question. I don't think we did that, though.
I guess the reason for that question is we're using that stream to
Whoops. At the time, it's sort of right on the edge of where, to be blunt, in our case, where business really started to grow. So the construction industry is kind of rebounding, housing, Moen's going with it. It feels great. Capacity today is becoming a problem. Like when we were studying this back around 10 and 11, it really wasn't that big a thing. We had plenty of capacity in the supply chain and in the plant. So I don't think capacity was a real driver at the time. But that's a really interesting observation, is now you've saved in time.
Because if you're not at capacity, from an accounting standpoint, it can be hard to turn that capacity you're gaining into dollars.
True.
If you are at capacity and you're gaining some capacity back, that turns into extra sales. That makes it, to dollarize it a lot easier.
Right. Now I'm getting units to go to people who pay us money. Right. Absolutely right. All right. Maybe one more. It's almost 2. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. Of MII? I don't know. See, we're using MII solely as the interface, so I don't think of that as an application layer with a version. It's just a utility in the middle. We're on ME6 and Pico 2.1. I don't know the version number of MII that's in there, to be honest with you. Correct. It's all SAP tools. I'm going to let Carol answer that. Where did we customize, do you think? Put you on the spot. Don't you love being here? Go ahead.
But that's the reason we were solely dependent on SAP a lot, because we did customize the whole pod screen. It was all custom. When it comes to the document generation to generate our labels, that was all custom. So Moen was a very unique project, I think, for SAP, and there was a lot of learnings. I know, like, one of the new functionalities that's coming up in 6.2, where you start with you're running this SKU of 600, that's how we're running right now. So we got that customized in our non-serialized world. We're more of a non-serialized world versus a serialized world.
So my add to that would be Moen has taken a very definitive mindset that the benefits of integration generally outweigh the benefits of best of breed. So we always look at SAP first. We always exhaust that until we just can't make it work. Then we'll go to another software company. But we're not shy about adapting and customizing it to be the best it can be for us. So we try not to splatter all kinds of vendors. We want to be SAP centric. But if we need to do something to it to optimize it, we will do that. Not the base code, to be clear, but where you can config and where you can put customizations on top of it, we'll do that. If it helps, it drives dollars. One last question, maybe.
I'm just going to ask, so much customization. Why did you go with ME and not just do an MII? Because it seems to be the bigger of the two options. What was it that drove that? But you only used a small bit of it.
Well, I think, and here again, I'm going to give you my opinion as opposed to maybe a corporate answer, is MEs seem to be the take the bill, interact with the machinery, and drive a control process solution, where MII, being sort of a blank template, what do you want to do with it? Could we have possibly done that? Probably. But now you're almost building a very, from scratch, customized application, as opposed to taking core capability and I guess what I would say is like configuring it into solution. So it's kind of our own understanding, which could have been right or wrong, and a little bit of SAP advice that says, if you want to do that, that's ME. And we said, okie dokie. All right, I think we're out of time. There's people pouring in. I really thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, give me a holler or shoot me an email. Thank you very much.